How's it going, guys? Randall aka Shizukats here on the Tressa's Collectibles channel to bring you our deck profile for the Goldbar Door Bang Dream deck based on Ave Musica. This deck has been an absolute terror in the Japanese side of the game, so much so that it warranted a restriction within the first 4 months of being playable. Even now, after the restriction, it's still a very strong deck, but here on the English side of things, we have no such limitations keeping us from playing this deck at its full power. As a result, this deck is one of our picks to be a top deck for the competitive season moving forward. Let's hop right in. As usual, we're beginning with the Climax combos. The level 1 Oblivionis can look at up to 4 cards from the top of your deck, adding a character from among them to hand or sending it to stock. And if you send it to stock, this gains an additional 1000 power for the turn. Additionally, she gains 1500 power during your turn passively, letting her swing for 7000 power with Climax if you add to hand, and 8000 if you send to stock. This flexibility is extremely powerful and is a huge part of what makes the Oblivionis combo one of, if not the best, top check 4 combo we've ever seen in Weiss Schwarz. The other part of what makes her so strong is you get to play 8 of her. The Sakiko changer has optional mill 3 on play, and at the start of your Climax phase, you can rest her and then immediately send her to waiting room to change into the Oblivionis and give her 1000 extra power at the same time, bringing her power line up to 8k or 9k. The fact that you can effectively run 8 copies of your combo, combined with the fact that her Climax is on a gold bar, makes it extremely easy to go for multiple turns of Climax combo in a row, while constantly speeding through your deck in the event that you are out of Climaxes. Our level 3 combo is the Doloris Cancel Burn finisher. When played from hand or via the auto ability of the 2-1 Uika, you can heal 1, and her Climax combo activates on attack. Pay 1, discard 1 to give herself an instance of Cancel Burn X, where X is the amount of damage that was cancelled, so if she swings for 3 and they cancel, you burn for 3. The crazy part is that this instance of Cancel Burn also spreads to another character, allowing it to stack and potentially get 2 or even 3 instances of Cancel Burn on a single character, since it can continue spreading as long as the attacks keep cancelling. For that reason, it's significantly more powerful if all of the attacks cancel, letting you do up to 9 instances of damage with triple Uika. However, the inverse is also true. If your opponent is far from lethal range and can afford to take a couple swings, and they actually take the swings, you lose a significant amount of your damage potential. A low roll turn might look like only 5 or even 4 instances of damage. So clearly we want our opponent to cancel the swing, right? Well, that means we should try to increase her soul so that her initial damage is higher. Well, boy do I have the card for you. The 2-1 Uika can change to the 3-2 Dolores if you're at level 3 by discarding a card, resting herself, and then sending herself to waiting room, similar to how the Sakiko does. However, instead of giving 1000 power upon changing, the Uika instead gives +1 soul upon changing, letting Dolores swing for 4 soul base with Climax. This change also lets you save 1 stock by paying 1 for the Uika instead of 2 for Dolores, and in exchange you have to discard an extra card. However, Uika's other effect can gain you that extra card herself. When she reverses a battle opponent, she can send herself to memory until the start of your next turn, letting you play her in advance and still have her around for when you eventually hit level 3. This also effectively allows you to cheat the hand size limit, since you can end your turn with 7 cards in hand but still have Uikas on your board next turn, rather than holding them in your hand and then playing them manually on your finisher turn when you're actually at level 3. For this reason, you should be looking to play your Uika changers pre-level 3 whenever you anticipate having a full hand at the end of your turn. The final piece of our puzzle, while not a Climax combo herself, is an important tool to go alongside our level 3 combo, the Trial Deck Oblivionis. This card acts as an off-Climax finisher with her Encore step, Pay 2, Burn 2. Now, you could field this front row with double Dolores, but the true potential of this card is unlocked when you play triple Dolores front row with Oblivionis in the back, since her effect can activate from anywhere. When the final Dolores attacks, if the swing gets cancelled, ordinarily you would have nowhere else for the burns to spread to, since you're done attacking. However, you can put them on the back row Oblivionis, potentially pushing a bunch of burn 2s down your opponent's throat when they thought they were in the clear. The ceiling of triple Dolores plus Oblivionis is absolutely disgusting, with up to 13 instances of damage. 2 from the first Dolores, 3 from the second, 4 from the third, and 4 more from Oblivionis. I have experienced situations at my locals where a player refreshed with all 8 of their Climaxes and needed 11 cancels to survive the remaining damage. This deck is absolutely terrifying to play against if it hits you to level 3 first, and so it's going to be crucial in this matchup to try to stay as healthy as possible if you're playing against it. However, one of the deck's biggest weaknesses is that this particular endgame setup requires quite a lot of resources, needing 10 starting stock, -1 per Uika changer used, and a fairly specific hand plus 3 discards, plus 1 additional discard per Uika changer. Ultimately, it's this specificity that makes the deck much weaker in short games where it does not have enough time to accumulate said resources. Alright, on to the rest of the deck. The typical early game staples for this deck archetype are the Amorous and Mocha level 0s. Amorous has 500 base power, but she gains 3000 on play and also locks one opposing character to their current stage position until the end of the opponent's next turn, which is extremely useful against runners or standby decks. Additionally, on attack, she can sack another one of your characters on stage to reveal the top card of your deck, and if it's a music character, you get to add it to your hand, resulting in a +1. The Mocha has an on-death search effect, allowing her to replace herself with a new card upon being sent to waiting room. You can combo this with the Amorous, sacking Mocha for cost to get one card, and using Mocha's effect to get another. Mocha also has an alarm effect to give a character a clock removal ability, which isn't a major part of this card's evaluation, but is definitely some nice extra text that can come in handy. You will want to take note of whether or not your opponent has hard removal tools at level 0. If they can, you will want to try to prioritize using Amorous to sacrifice your own Mocha to get her on-death ability. If your opponent does not have any hard removal effects at level 0, you can consider using Amorous to sack a different character at level 0 instead, and then let your opponent run over your Mocha so that you have the flexibility to search going into your own turn. Since the Mocha is from the 5th anniversary set and not the Ave Musica and MyGO set, she might be a little hard to find or more on the expensive side if you can find them. So a couple potential replacement options are the level 0 Nyamu, who also has an on-death plussing effect just like Mocha, or the level 0 Mutsumi, which doesn't offer a +1 with her effect, but lets you maintain the number of green cards in the deck, which is on the lower side considering that this deck runs a level 1 green combo, and also lets you level up on command during your own main phase, which the Mocha and Nyamu cannot do as easily. Next up on our list of blatantly strong cards, we have the Timoris level 0. This card has just one ability. On death, you can discard a card to top check 4 and add a music character from among them to your hand. This is an ability we've seen in the past on cards like Tia from Nikkei. However, this card has a crazy twist. If you see a copy of herself within the top check 4, you can send a copy of the Timoris from your waiting room to the bottom of your stock, netting you an extra stock for no reason. The copy you send to stock can even be the one that you just saw off the top check 4, since it will fall into the waiting room before the stock charge part of the effect starts to resolve. Similar to Mocha, this Timoris also has synergy with the Amorous level 0, letting you sacrifice her for the on-attack top check add, and then immediately following it up with Timoris' effect if you need to mill a bit more, or if you just want to filter a useless card out of your hand for something better. Our brainstorm of choice is the new Soyo level 0, which is functionally identical to Suisei Brainstorm from Hololive, being a rest self-salvage brainstorm and giving the Crush effect to a character on Climax placement. This is just a generally useful effect that can be used to control your upcoming triggers or play flexibly around the number of remaining cards in your deck. It also has notable synergies with cards like the Amorous level 0 and Anon level 3, both of which care about top checking on attack. Finally, we have our one of utilities. Taki is a ditch Climax salvage and drop searcher on the same card, giving her great flexibility. The Oblivionist Climax swapper is, well, it's a Climax swapper. Most decks will want to run at least one. She is also a clock bomb, allowing you to hard remove pesky opposing level 0s if you don't need to hold her in your hand for her Climax swap ability. At level 1, the only non-combo card we run is a one of Uika. This card can manually sacrifice itself to give 2k power to a character, and when sent from stage to waiting room, be it by her own effect or otherwise, she lets you top check up to 3 cards to add a Climax, and if you do add one to your hand, you discard a card. This effect has no downside whatsoever, since nothing bad happens if you fail to find a Climax, and you aren't even forced to take the Climax if you find one. It's just a free mill up to 3 at worst, making it a powerful tool to help find your Climaxes to continue comboing, or just get out of a bad deck state if you don't have any Climaxes remaining. Moving on to level 2, we have the 2-1 Amorous. This card is a global 2k on your turn, helpful for getting reverses with the 2-1 Uika, but also allows our level 1 Oblivionist combos to kill cards that are normally outside their weight class. Amorous' other effect lets you rest her and sack another character on stage to draw a card. This ability is extremely flexible and can be used in a number of ways. For example, you can use a character's on-play ability and then sack it for a new card in hand and make room for a better attacker. You can also use this to sack characters with on-death abilities such as the Timoris or Uika. If that wasn't enough, she also has amazing synergy with our next card, the 3/2 Mortis Early Play Healer. This card is honestly just like, why? She can be early played if you have 4 or more characters on stage, and she heals on play. Seems normal, right? Well, when you play her, if you have 4 or more other characters on stage, instead of healing to waiting room, she heals to stock instead, without having to discard a card like you usually would. And if you're early playing her with 4 or more already on stage, she just fulfills the condition to heal to stock by default. And if that wasn't enough, if you feel like it, you can play 2 in one turn without going -1, since you can play the first one and then use the 2/1 Amorous' effect to sack a character, draw a card, and open up a space on board to play the second. You get 2 early play healers for only 1 stock each, and no additional resources spent. And if that wasn't enough, this card also ignores color restriction for some reason, which isn't important in this deck since we want to be leveling green anyway for our level 1 combo, but this allows it to be played in any music-based BanG Dream deck at little to no consequence, and with no need for other green cards. Just an absolutely ridiculous card, and all this power comes at the low price of not having a soul trigger? This is actually kind of relevant since our Dolores level 3 combos want to attack for a lot of damage to force cancels, but still, it's an insane card, and we're only playing it at 2 copies in this build due to space constraints, but I have seen Dolores builds that cut out some of the finisher ratios to play 3 or even 4 Mortis. The last character of the deck is the level 3 Anon. On play, you can either salvage a character for free, or you can salvage a Climax for 1 additional stock. This will mainly be used as an extra way to get your finisher Climax if you haven't been able to get it through other means by this point. Unlike many other Climax salvage level 3s though, Anon can function as part of your end board thanks to her second effect. On attack, you can pay 2 and discard 1 to reveal the top card of your deck, and burn damage equal to its level +1. Combo this with the effect granted by the Soyo Brainstorm, giving you a choice between the top 2 cards of your deck to modulate your damage output. The final card of the list is the infamous 2/1 Stock Swap event. Tack this card onto your endgame if your opponent's stock and deck are in a good position for it. There is a bit of irony in using Stock Swap in this deck though, since you want your opponent to cancel the initial swing. So using Stock Swap might actually make it harder for the opponent to cancel, but sometimes the opponent is just so compressed that you need a way to force through it without just letting them cancel the first 4 or 5 instances of damage for free. The current JP restriction list prevents players from running Sakiko Changer alongside the Stock Swap event, and current lists seem to indicate that JP players are keeping the Changers moving forward and replacing the Stock Swap events with more Mortis Early Play Healers or other such cards. However, at least for now, the English version does not have to make that choice, so just keep this in mind if BanG Dream ends up getting hit in English down the line. Technically, since the English version of BanG Dream has no restrictions whatsoever, you could even try to fit the Arisa Fumio into the build. You will want to play more blue, however, potentially running cards like the Yuki no Riki instead of the Mocha on Death Riki, if you're okay with having a riskier green count. The current build only plays 1 blue card, which is the level 0 Taki, making it almost impossible to reliably play Arisa. And if you see an upcoming gameplay video of this deck but there's a level 3 Arisa in it, no you didn't. In the early game, prioritize Amorous and Mocha level 0s, as well as the Goldbar Climax and at least 1 Brainstorm. Level 1 combos can be mulliganed away if you need to get better level 0 hand quality, since they can be recurred via the Changers. But if your hand is already good enough, you can hold onto them like you normally would with your level 1 combos. However, when it comes to Changers, I tend to always mulligan them away. Even though Changers are effectively the 5th through 8th copies of level 1 combo, they are useless if you don't have an actual copy of combo in your waiting room to change into. The main game plan of this deck revolves around the Sakiko Oblivionis combo in tandem with your Brainstorms, of which I want to have 2 of in my back row ASAP. For the first round of level 1 combos, I prefer to add cards to hand, securing myself cards to work with on my next turn. For every subsequent turn of Climax combo, I will typically use 1 or 2 Brainstorms to get the exact cards that I want, and then use the Climax combos to send a bunch of cards to stock instead of adding to hand, fueling my future Brainstorms. The combination of Brainstorming, Sakiko Changer's on-play mill 3, and Oblivionis combo's top check 4 add will allow me to quickly and consistently speed through the deck. If your Brainstorms hit a bunch, use the Oblivionis combo to turbo towards your next deck rotation. And if the opposite is true, and you have a decent number of Climaxes left in a medium-sized deck, that's fine too, because your Oblivionis combo doesn't need to do a lot of digging. Just stop at the first character you see, and send it to stock, and leave the Climaxes left in your deck to cancel with. Cards you will want to be looking to collect off your first set of Climax combos, as well as your Brainstorms, are more copies of combo, so you can go again, 1 copy of Amorous 2-1, Uika Changers, and Mortis early plays. The Unknown Climax Salvager and Oblivionis Climax Swapper are also handy to hold onto for the endgame for obvious reasons. At level 2, Amorous can replace one of your Brainstorms in the back row. You can either attack with that Brainstorm, or sack it off for Amorous's draw effect to make room for a new attacker. Continue to generate advantage with more level 1 combos if possible, throwing in Uika Changers and or Mortis early plays into the mix where applicable. At level 3, your base resource threshold for triple Dolores is 7 stock and 3 discards. For each Uika Changer you are using, the stock cost goes down by 1. Ideally, we would like to use both of the Uika Changers that we have in our deck list, as that gives us +1 soul on 2 lanes. So in that case, the total stock expenditure for triple Uika goes all the way down to a measly 5 stock. As mentioned earlier in the video, triple Dolores plus Oblivionis in back row requires 10 stock and 1 additional hand. Again, with the stock cost being reduced by 1 for each Uika Changer used, so potentially you can get this full setup for 8 stock. For Unknown setups, double Dolores plus Unknown requires 8 starting stock, 9 if you need to salvage your Climax, and again, -1 stock per Uika Changer. Double Dolores plus Unknown plus Oblivionis is the most expensive setup, requiring 11 starting stock, 12 if you need to salvage your Climax, and -1 per changer. Finally, in any of these setups, if you want to add a stock swap event into the mix as well, that adds 1 extra stock and 1 extra hand. Throughout the video, we've already looked at some of the alternative options for the deck, such as the Mutsumi level 0 or the Yukina Riki. But what are some more alternative options? This is BanG after all. There's literally almost a decade of older cards that we can look at. So let's start with the Layer Restand from the Reisa Suilen trial deck. This card is, well, it's a restand. This card raises the damage floor of your finisher turn compared to triple Dolores, since she gives you a 4th instance of soul damage to work with. Furthermore, the fact that Layer attacks twice means that she has 2 chances to proc the cancel burn, and thus 2 chances to pass on the cancel burn to another character. Assuming your first 2 attacks are a Dolores into Layer, Layer can actually pass an instance of cancel burn to the second Dolores, which can potentially get passed back to her for the second attack of her restand. Very funny stuff. However, going with this setup with this specific attack order is quite expensive, requiring 9 starting stock, -1 per changer, and of course, it's also reliant on the first attack canceling. Here's another blast from the past. The level 1 Saya from Girls Band Party 1 is another card that I've experimented with in my lists. Saya's effect can be used to summon a level 1 Sakiko Changer from the waiting room, which you can then change into the Oblivionis combo. So in this case, Saya is just an easy way to pay 1 stock for 1 card. If you feel like it, you can even just use Saya to go straight into the Oblivionis combo, rather than going into the Sakiko Changer in the middle. This potentially allows you to get an Oblivionis into memory for a little bit of extra compression, but it removes 1 Oblivionis from the pool for you to actually use for your combos. So Saya allows you to convert 1 stock into 1 card, but what if you want to convert resources in the other direction? Consider using either the Kanon or Rui level 0. Kanon reveals the top card of your deck on play, and can send herself to stock, and that's it. It's not very flashy, but allows for an easy 1-to-1 conversion, which also synergizes well with the Mortis early plays, since she opens up a slot on board. Rui can draw 1, discard 1 on play, and then pay 1 sack herself to summon a character from your hand of equal or lower level than your level, allowing you to bring out the Mortis early play from hand for 1 stock and then heal to stock, resulting in a net 0 cost early play heal. If you need a bounce tech versus decks such as Shakugan Oshana or Nikkei, consider running the 3-2 Mutsumi. She has both an on-play bounce and a level-down alarm, giving her 2 ways to be utilized. However, keep in mind that the alarm can be played around by using an encore, so it's not as reliable. Of course, we can't talk about alternative options without also taking a quick look at the Tomori level 3 version of the deck. This is another extremely popular version of the Sakiko level 1 combo deck, which goes into the Tomori MyGO finisher instead of Dolores, being more focused on playing a bunch of Mortis early play heals at level 2, and having an endgame that is relatively cheap compared to Dolores, while still having good damage potential, and arguably better reach than Dolores due to not being reliant on cancels. There are so many more cards I could talk about, like Rimi level 1, Tsukushi Brainstorm, Oblivionis Clean Cut, but this video is getting pretty long, so let's wrap this up. As for weaknesses, as mentioned earlier, this deck cannot kill reliably from range, since the opponent can just take the hit, and you lose all instances of cancel burn that you've built up to that point. Additionally, this deck is extremely susceptible to minus soul, rest counters, and anti-damage counters. You can't really do much to play around those strategies either, since your defensive numbers aren't that great, and sometimes you might even just be leaving empty spaces on your board with your Uika changer going to memory. This is the perfect example of a deck that can snowball uncontrollably or flop horrendously depending on how the game goes or what deck you're matched up against. So it's up to the pilot to make sure that they have the game under control. With that being said, when you're playing this deck and the game is going really well, sometimes it just feels downright unfair. And that's going to do it for our Goldbar Door BanG Dream deck profile. Coming up next on the channel, we'll be showcasing this deck against an optimized MyGO deck so you guys can get a taste of both strategies, so stay tuned for that in our upcoming gameplay block. Until then, this has been Randall aka ShizuCats on the Tressa's Collectibles channel, and remember, if you think you saw a 3-2 Arisa, no you didn't. See ya!